Good evening, Lynn.
Hello again, Annette. I think I spent more time with you today than I spent with my family.
Well, for our people on this webinar, we did a presentation earlier today. So this is kind of like the rehearsal for what we're doing right now. About a year and a half ago, or was it 2.5 years? It's been a while. Lynn and I found ourselves in a similar situation. Let me introduce myself first. My name's Annette Reynolds, and I am the broker at Team Impressa. And this is my business partner. I also call her my work wife, Lynn Cohen. And sometimes I think we speak more to each other than we do to our husbands.
Certainly true today.
Okay. And this program came out of some discussions we had a few years ago. And as I like to say, my partner Lynn is an old lady. She's going to be 71 years old. And she's of an age where we start thinking about major life transitions. Oh, I guess I should tell you, I'm 6 years older than she is. And so
You're a double old lady.
What?
You're a double old lady.
I'm a double old lady. And when we start talking about major transitions in life, first, most importantly, we suggest that you do your homework, speak to the experts, especially when we talk about whether you should stay in your home or downsize. Our homes are usually one of our largest investments, although I hate to call them an investment, but that's where a lot of our money is, our wealth is held. And when we start talking about it, there are consequences, financial consequences, tax consequences, not to mention personal and family consequences. And we strongly suggest that you get advice before you make any firm decision to move forward. But one day in the office, we were talking and Lynn says to me, "Hey, congratulations, Annette, you've got a new listing. You just listed my condo." And I looked at her and I said, "Tell me more." And this is part of the way the discussion started. So Lynn, why don't you share with the audience your story?
Well, we'd lived in the same condo in Chestnut Hill for 30 years. It was purchased at the time it was purchased. It felt expensive at what, 300,000 now. Certainly with the way the real estate market has gone, it appreciated over 30 years handsomely. And I was looking at the fact that we're getting closer and closer to retirement age. My wonderful full-time working husband is turning 85 this summer. And we know we can't keep doing what we're doing forever. So it started around our dinner table with discussions about how we could enjoy the lifestyle we have without making financial sacrifices, without having to cut back. And one of the ways, frankly, was to cut our living expense overhead.
What was your condo? What was your condo fee?
My condo fee was $1,800
a month.
That's not much less than my mortgage now. That was crazy. So my husband was very resistant. And as somebody in real estate for as long as I've been in real estate, that was appalling to me. I was ready to go. Let's find something wonderful and new. We were living within a mile of his boyhood home, and he had never lived anywhere else. And it was very unsettling to him. And so it took a lot of conversation, serious conversation. And finally, he made a proposition that I don't think he regrets anymore, but I think in the moment he did. He said, "Honey, if you can get X dollars for this place, and I can put half of X in the bank when you buy a new place, then I'll sell it." I did.
He underestimated you, didn't he?
He underestimated the market, and maybe he underestimated me and you, because we knew the market, we knew what we could get. It was so much harder than I thought it would be on so many levels. And it almost embarrassed me in that I've been in the business now, since 1997, 25 years.
But you know, Lynn, buying and selling a house is different than relocating.
Oh boy, I will tell you that the experience humbled me and made me a better servant to our clients. My husband was totally freaked out at the idea of a new neighborhood, and we only moved 5 miles down the road, mind you. And I was totally freaked out about managing the move. It was a lot harder than I thought it would be. It was only 3 years ago. I wasn't a kid then either. And it was physically harder on me. I didn't know how much help I would need. And it set me back. Emotionally, physically, set me back. And at about the same time, you and I started talking about, well, hell, if this is happening to me and I'm in the business, what must it really be like for some of our clients? And
Absolutely.
what are some of their choices? Because you went in a completely different direction, right?
Absolutely. I call it my crappy little house in North Walton.
It's adorable. Let's call it adorable.
And it's the 13th house I've lived in since I got married. Now, I've been married for almost 55 years, but we have moved at least 13 times. And I never want to move again. It's interesting because it's more than just the not wanting to move, though. Although I will share with the audience, I was the one driving the diesel truck up 128.
When you moved last.
Every now and again, most of the time, my husband has great ideas. He's brilliant. And every now and again, he gets a stupid one. And the last time we moved was the stupid one. He's not going to pay anybody to do. So we moved. And I will say, moving as many times as we have, I probably don't have quite as much stuff as you may have had, but we still had stuff. And we packed it in the boxes. We put it in the U-Haul. I'm hauling up 128 in a diesel truck, which is a little bit different than a gas truck. And the driving was fun. The packing, the unpacking, the cleaning was not fun. And I'll never do it again. It's that simple. But the other thing, Lynn, and one of the reasons I'm not going to move is that this house supports our lifestyle. Fred loves to garden, you know that. You've seen the flowers in the house, you've seen the flowers outside of the house. I have at least 4 months worth of green beans frozen in my freezer from last year's garden. And a couple of squash left too from last year. And we're very happy growing food, preparing food, eating. We live simply. The other thing is, I'm thinking every single one of my sons and their families have lived with us at one point or another. We've been in this house for 20 years. And when we first moved in, it was my oldest son and his wife in between houses. And then it was my youngest son and his girlfriend, and they got married. And now my grandgirls come to visit, and we have place here for them. And then, as you know, our second son, Mike, lived with us for about 10 years. And when he went to take a fellowship in West Virginia, he says to his son, "Hey, I'm leaving. You can have my room for the summer." And so my grandson moved in. And then when he moved out, his older Sid moved in. We always have somebody here, and we have space for when the grandkids come. And when the youngest family lost power, all 4 of them came up here and stayed with us for a few days. And I really like that. So it supports our lifestyle as much as anything else. And I don't have a mortgage.
There you go. That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. So, I'm not saying that we won't change our mind at some point in the future, but we're both healthy. We like maintaining the house. We like living here, and it suits our style.
So what happened is that I chose a path toward downsizing, and you chose to stay.
Yeah.
And this program really emerged from our experiences and the light bulb moments we had when we realized that they weren't unique.
Yeah.
I mean, you touched on some of it, and there are a few reasons why people face this decision.
Yeah.
We talked about them.
But let's break this apart a bit.
Right.
Let's talk about staying in our homes.
Mm-hmm.
You understand why I want to. However, I'm scheduled for joint replacement in a couple of weeks. And as we age, there's a probability or a possibility, if not a probability, of physical challenges. And then there are the financial challenges. Now, you're working, your husband's working, I'm working, we have income coming in. If I weren't working, money could be a problem. My major resource is my home. That's where the money is. And I just can't go to the bank of house and pull out a few dollars whenever I need them. So those are the two biggest issues I see for those of us who decide to stay in our home. Now, we've done this program half a dozen times. We sometimes have other guests with us. They weren't able to join us this evening, but I buttonholed them and I got them to record a video for us. Let's talk first about physical limitations. Now, we know an architect. His name is Stuart Parsons, and his ideal job is helping people stay in their homes. And I chatted with him late last week, and I'd like to share what he had to say. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. And let me go ahead and launch.
And why don't you explain to our audience about you, what you do, and why you've chosen accessibility as one of your areas of concentration?
Okay, well, it kind of goes back to when I was young. I'll just say straight out that I love working with homes. They're in my blood. It's really been a part of my life since I was very young. And I did a lot of work with my father, who was kind of a part-time builder. And I was involved in the building trades. And I also like to draw. And I wanted to be like my grandfather, who was an artist. So I decided to go to architectural school, which seemed like kind of a logical next step. And I went to the Boston Architectural Center, which was a working college, meaning you had to have full-time experience at an architectural firm as part of the curriculum. Mm-hmm. So by the time I graduated, I'd already worked for a couple of different firms on a wide range of projects, municipal, higher education projects, institutional, as well as residential. But the public projects really got me involved in ADA and accessibility upgrades. Mm-hmm. And but on my own practice, which got started about 25 years ago, I mostly focus on private residential work. And I started to notice that there was a theme in what people wanted, and that was, we don't want to move, but what can we do to our homes to make it comfortable and allow us to stay here as long as possible? And I was really attracted to that and kind of curious by it. It's on big public projects, it can take a long time to complete a project. And, you almost never connect with the users of the building. But when working on someone's home, I'm usually working directly with the homeowner, and they're the user of the space. And the projects happen much faster, and I can make a more immediate positive impact in their life just by helping them improve their environment.
Well, what are some of the common projects that you work on? And what are some of your favorites as well?
Common projects, and are also interesting to me, are improving someone's bathroom. I mean, the older homes typically have small, cramped bathrooms that were undersized to begin with. So if you can do that, that can be a major improvement in someone's home. In-law suites, they're typically referred to as accessory dwelling units these days, and towns are much more proactive in promoting those. And those can be done as either an addition or part of a remodel, even standalone on the same property, and that can allow an older family member to move in with their family and be close by and still have their own independence. Expanding garages, creating more space for people for maneuverability and interior access to their home. Then there's ramps and walkways and entry modifications, and those are all gratifying if you can work out a problem and make something really look as though it's part of the surroundings and part of the structure. And opening up kitchen and family rooms, older homes, that's a very popular improvement, wanting to have an open floor plan, and it's a great opportunity to make things more accessible. Also been doing a lot of therapy spas lately. These are small swimming pools. They allow people to do their own home therapy and exercise in a much smaller space than what is typically required from a swimming pool, a conventional swimming pool. And these can be both interior and exterior installations. With all these projects, you really need to consider kind of all aspects of the home. So I help people look at the various obstacles and the barriers. And I really like to focus on lighting too. Lighting's an area that can always be improved, and I make it a goal to introduce as much natural light into a space as possible. Has so many benefits.
Well, one of the thoughts that I'm having, even as I'm listening to you, I've been in my house for 20 years, and it started out as a small 2-bedroom lake cottage, and it's been expanded in various ways. But as I'm listening to you, I'm beginning to see it through different eyes, which is what you bring to the project, because we're so used to where we've always been and done it always this way, that we don't always see how it can be changed, sometimes in a big way, sometimes in a smaller way with a larger impact that you bring to the project. Now, I remember the first time we spoke, you mentioned elevators. And it blew my mind a little bit, because I had not considered an elevator in a residential setting, because my house is modest, and I'm thinking, it could work. It could work.
It can. And there's usually a couple of options and different ways to do it. It is an investment, but while you're improving your home and making things more comfortable for you, these are also features that add value to a home. And people are looking for these in new homes, and as well as updated older homes. Compared to the hassle and the expense of moving, it may be very worthwhile and worth considering for someone.
Well, the other thought that occurred to me, we're looking at a median price in Waltham getting close to $700,000, and Waltham is not an expensive, fancy community. And you're looking at median prices in places like Newton, $1 million, $1.1 million, and you get to Wellesley, you're up a few more $100,000 above that as a median price, not a high one, not a low one. And when you look at $35,000 to $50,000 or even $100,000 to put in an elevator, it's not a large percentage of the value of the home.
Right, and if it allows you to stay there and be more comfortable, that to me is a worthy price. All right, so this first project is a very common one. The client actually had a progressive illness, and of course didn't want to move, but knew that she needed to make some major improvements, particularly with the bathroom facility. And so we looked primarily, this was something that she, of course, was having issues with, getting into and out of her tub. And there wasn't a lot of space here, but thankfully there was some space behind the shower wall. So we were able to create a roll-in shower. And
oh, wow.
You can see that's her shower chair. And there's actually a couple of different shower nozzles for spraying, showering, shampooing. So there's a lot more fixtures than would normally be in a conventional shower area. But we went over the spacing and the clearances and maneuverability that was needed. And she's very happy with it. And we gave her a lot more space to work with, and improved the lighting and improved access to everything. So this is.
And you know, while I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, well, when she decides to sell it, that isn't a negative for the next owner. Just put up a bar and a curtain and you're ready to go.
Right. Yeah. And actually, given her condition, the curtain was going to be in the way, but we accounted for where the water was going and sloped the floor and the drains. And so it works out pretty well. This is actually the other side, the opposite side of the room. This was the existing condition. And of course, in a walker or in a scooter, you just can't maneuver under a sink like this and do all the things you would like to do. So from another angle, we created a different vanity for her, and also relocated the toilet, put in some pretty exceptional stable grab bars that can fold up and away when they're not being used.
Very nice. Very nice.
So this next project is the view we're looking at is what was a formal dining room on the first floor of the small Cape home, and it was never used. It was filled with old china and keepsakes and things that nice to have, but it was space that was going underutilized. And the clients had their master bedroom on the second floor, but of course, to get up there, it was a steep stair, narrow, just very difficult. And then once you're there, the closet space was inadequate. There were headroom issues. So it wasn't ideal. What they really wanted to do was move downstairs, where they had already renovated their kitchen. So almost everything for them was right there on the first floor, except their master bedroom. So we created a master bedroom suite for them. And this next view is really the exact same wall. We actually put a small addition on the window side that you're looking at now. So, we opened up the right-hand wall, so there's much more light in the space. We put in a fully accessible bathroom on the left-hand side. You can see that wide doorway, and made things, not that they need it, but should they ever have the need for a wheelchair or any amenities of that sort, there's plenty of room. And the wall directly ahead, you can see there's a laundry space beyond there. So
while you're making the one renovation, you might as well look ahead just in case.
Right. We added, additional closet space, walk-in closet space for them, and laundry facilities. And so they really don't have a need to go upstairs. And yet now they have more guest bedrooms there for when their kids come to visit.
I just found that fascinating. And it did such a nice job there, but just to give some idea of what could be done.
He's remarkable.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just everything from grab bars that we can put into major renovations. The question is, okay, I can stay in my home now. I can get around. I'm not worried about trip hazards, falling, anything else. How do I pay for it? Because we say there are just two things that people who come to our programs have challenges with. One is money, and we're going to talk about that shortly. The other is stuff. And then if they decide to move, a few more challenges there. But seriously, how do you support yourself if you're going to stay in your home? Or can you use your home to support yourself? Now, Lynn, you know what Fred and I did.
Yes.
I went to
And
the
we
bank.
advise anyone who's able to do exactly the same.
We're on Social Security. We have our income. We have a little bit of other income. And my bank was having a sale on money. And I just couldn't resist. Seriously, for a very low application fee, they would give us a line of credit. And so I said to Fred, let's go get $100,000 line of credit. And he's so funny. He says, I don't want any more debt. I said, we don't have to use it. It's a safety net. And we went, we applied, it's just no problem. And it cost me $75 a year to maintain this line of credit. We haven't had to dip into it, but if I should decide to go around the world for a few months and I don't have the cash in the bank, I can go to my line of credit and pay not much more than prime rate for any of the money that I use. But that
And it's a good idea to have that as a safety net. However, you needed to show the bank that you had sufficient income in order to pay back such a loan should you tap into it. And for some of our clients, that's a challenge. They've already retired. They're living on fixed incomes, and accessing the money is a challenge. We have a client right now who my mother would have called her a poor little rich girl, because she's got 600,000 or so tied up as equity in her house, but she can't afford the mortgage and she's on food stamps. Something's wrong with that picture.
Yeah.
Her health is failing.
Yeah, we're not going to solve society's problems, but there is an answer to this.
Exactly. I know a lot of people have heard very, very negative stories over the years about something called a reverse mortgage, and I understand why. The early reverse mortgages were unregulated. It was the Wild West, and a lot of heirs, our kids, found out that mom and dad tapped into the equity of the house, and that when they passed away or moved to a nursing home, there was no equity left for them. So it caused a lot of problems. In addition, people were getting poor advice. They were getting the money, they were spending it, and then they ran out again, and you can only go to that well once. Exactly.
Okay.
So the new, and by new, I mean 2015 and forward, it is now an FHA regulated product. It requires special training by special mortgage originators to deliver it. And it is an option that allows you to tap the equity of your home for your living expenses. And there are rules and regs. Did you speak with Renee? Do you have a video?
I did speak with Renee. I was going to say we've learned a lot, but let's hear from the expert.
Exactly.
Okay?
Exactly.
I'm going to give me a second to launch this. Whoops. Goodbye.
Goodbye, David, and hello, Renee.
There we go.
Renee, it is so good to see you again.
Thank you, Annette. I am happy to be here.
You are one of my go-to people when it comes to speaking about reverse mortgages, because I know that is an important part of the work that you do.
It is. It's an important part, and it's one of my favorite parts. As you know, reverse mortgages are a misunderstood program. So whenever I get the opportunity to talk about them, I'm game for it.
Oh, I understand that. Well, there was a lot of bad press about it, and a lot of misinformation out there, as you said. But let me ask you a question. Who can get a reverse mortgage?
All right, so down to the nitty gritty. So
absolutely
60 or older. It has to be your primary residence, and you have to have some equity. You don't have to have all the equity, but you have to have some equity.
Okay, and let's say I come to you and I say, Renee, I'm tired of living hand to mouth. My Social Security almost covers it. A couple things I want to do. Tell me about reverse mortgages. How do you start?
Sure. So think of a reverse mortgage like an equity loan, right? So you've got some equity in the house, you go to your local bank and you get an equity loan or an equity line, a HELOC, right? You've heard of that term. So a reverse mortgage is same idea, accessing the equity in your house, but the difference being with a reverse mortgage, you don't have a monthly mortgage payment. Okay, so qualifying without having the payment, qualifying for it is very different than if you were to go for a typical equity loan. So with an equity loan, you have to make monthly payments, so you have to have some income to cover that, right? You have to
Well, but it's
qualify
just,
for that.
my husband and I took one out a few years ago, and the application was just the same as applying for any mortgage. I need to give them
Yep.
all the documents. I am employed, I had income coming in, and it was pretty straightforward, pretty easy. But you're telling me if I decided to get a reverse mortgage, the only thing that matters is how much equity I have in my home.
Yeah, so you have to have some income still, because you still need to pay your property taxes and your homeowner's insurance, and of course your daily living expenses. So there is income required. However, depending on your situation, if the reverse mortgage is, you're taking a reverse mortgage because you need that equity to live on, we consider that in your qualifying. So you can use the reverse mortgage sort of as the income to qualify for it. So it's kind of a unique program.
Yeah, well, it took me a while to figure this all out, okay? And I'll share this with you. I said, how can you do that? Well, it's kind of like I'm saying the government's gambling. They figure of a certain age, I'm going to live so long, and if I take out this amount of mortgage, there's enough left to pay the interest when I decide to sell the home or get rid of the home. Is that it?
Right, that's exactly right. So when we determine how much equity you can take out of the home, it's based on 3 criteria. So it's based on your age, okay? The older you are, the more we'll let you take. It's based on the value of the home, and it's based on the interest rates. So today we sort of have the best of all worlds, right? We have the highest values on your homes and the lowest interest rates. So again, the amount of equity we'll let you take out is based on those 3 criteria. So if you think roughly 50%, so if you're a little bit older, it could be a little more than 50%. If you're on the younger side, it could be a little less than 50%. But for example purposes, 50% is a good number to think about. And that's the amount of equity we'll let you take out.
Okay, so my home is fully paid, and it's worth about $650,000. So you're saying on average, I can pull out or get a mortgage for $330,000 in rough number.
Right.
Older than most, maybe a little bit more. So I have access to $330,000. Do I have to take it out?
You don't. So you can set up the reverse mortgage any way you like. So if you need a lump sum, if you needed all of that all at once, you can do that. Now, we don't necessarily recommend that unless you're using those funds for a specific purchase, right? So I've had borrowers needed some repairs on the house. They were buying a second home, perhaps, so they needed a large chunk of money. Otherwise, you set it up like a line of credit. So that 300 and whatever thousand sits in a line of credit. Only when you need it and you access it, the portion that you use is the portion you'll owe back to the bank at some point. And that home is no longer your home, whether you've sold it or you've passed away. That's when the mortgage is due. Only the portion that you have used of that equity. So you don't have to take it all and sit on it. It sits in that line of credit and is available to you whenever you need it.
Oh, that sounds good. But let me ask you another question. You said something about having to live in the home. What if I go into assisted living or something like this?
So the home has to be your primary residence. If you go into, say, a rehab, right? You've fallen ill or you've had an accident of some sort, and you go into a rehab, and your intention is to go back to your primary residence.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing changes with the loan, it's still there. Once you've left the home permanently, as you said, if you go into assisted living permanently, that's when the loan will come due. If you pass away, the loan comes due. If you sell the house, the loan comes due.
Okay, what happens if there's not enough equity left in the home? Let's say, look, I'm 70 something. Let's say I live until 90 something, which is beyond the date that this was all calculated on, and there's not enough equity in the home to pay off the loan. What will my kids do?
So these loans are non-recourse loans. So what that means is the house is the only collateral. If you should go upside down, the difference is not owed back to the bank. So you as the homeowner are off the hook. Your children, if you will the house to them, your heirs, they are not responsible for the difference.
Whew, I intend to live to 200, so. Let me see, another question I have. This is an FHA product, correct? And it's guaranteed by the government, correct?
Correct.
What type, let's just say I want to get started. I understand there's counseling required.
Yes, so that's one of the protections that put in place that we mentioned earlier, that there's a reputation that goes along with these reverse mortgages. And that reputation was earned years ago. And perhaps rightfully so, the way the programs were structured back then, they've revamped the programs completely. And so one of the protections in place now for the seniors is this counseling. It's kind of financial counseling, but it's more based specifically towards the reverse mortgage. So the counselor is an independent third party that will go over the reverse mortgage and all of your numbers specifically to make sure that you understand the program and you understand how it works, and really just confirming that you want to move forward with the program. So it's confirming what the information that I've given to you, and the counselors confirm that you understand that. So again, just a protection in place for the seniors.
That sounds fantastic. What else should I know if I'm in a reverse mortgage?
Yeah, so one of the big questions that we get, and sort of it's one of those leftover misnomers from previous programs. So a lot of people think that if you do a reverse mortgage, you're signing the house over to the bank, or the bank takes your home, or the bank owns your home, and that is not the case. So a reverse mortgage is just like any other mortgage on your home. You still own your home, but there's a lien against it, right? So it's like any other mortgage. There's no difference from a reverse mortgage and any other mortgage. If you sell your house, the lien has to get paid off. If you pass away, the lien has to get paid off. So there's different ways that you can do that, and it would work like any other mortgage. So that's kind of one of the big misconceptions about the program. You still own your home, it's yours, and you can do whatever you like with it.
Just one final thought. I heard that you can buy a home with a reverse mortgage.
Yes, you can. It takes a minute to kind of wrap your brain on how you can do it, but yes, it is a program. You can purchase the home with a reverse mortgage and perhaps not have to use all of your cash reserves that you have, and maintain some of those for retirement. So yes, you can purchase a home with a reverse mortgage and have no mortgage payments.
Thank you so much. It's so much information in a short period of time. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Okay. She is
Crazy, right? She's as lovely as she is smart.
Yeah. So, we talked about staying in your home. We talked about making it physically, I want to say attractive, but not attractive in a visual sense, but a safe and able to live there easily. We talked about financially as well. And so I'm staying put. I've got my line of credit. If I didn't have that, I'd get a reverse mortgage. The other thing that I did, since I'm anticipating some surgery, is I moved all my rooms around. I now have a bedroom on the same floor as my kitchen, no steps. So again, there are lots of things that we can do so we can stay here. But you moved.
I did.
And you had a challenge with stuff, didn't you?
I was shocked because I'm kind of outwardly orderly, but when I opened all my cupboards and all of the closets and started to get organized to move, I had my dishes from my first wedding and the crystal and the china and my mother's and both my grandmother's and a couple sets of flatware and nobody in my family wanted them.
Wait a second. You and Richard have 4 kids.
Nobody wants your stuff. That's the big takeaway. And over the years, I probably had 20 glass mason jars that were empty, and I figured I'd need them one day, and clothes I hadn't worn in years. And
You were going to fit into them again, like I'm going to fit
yes,
into
some
mine.
with the tags still on. I mean, it was just insane, and it was very intimidating and very overwhelming. And I was very lucky that I have a close friend who is a professional organizer, and she sat me down and straightened me out and helped me get everything in piles. But the biggest challenge that we have found in working with downsizing clients is simply stuff. What do I do with it? How do I get rid of it if I know I don't want it? God, who carts it away?
Well, you
If
know,
I have valuables, what do I do with them?
we have generated a resource list, and it's on our downsize or stay.com website. In fact, one of the gals
Including some organizers who are wonderful, and some people who pick up furniture and put it on consignment, and some
you
junk
used a
removers.
place here in Waltham, and
I
they
did, and they were lovely, and they put the furniture. It's funny, my taste had changed over the years, and I had this brand new place, and I was going to make it fresh and new, and I really moved very little of my furniture. I really was ready to start over, but nobody wants your old stuff. They came in, they picked it up, they put it in their consignment store. I got a couple small checks. Nobody wants it even there. I have news for you. And what didn't sell, I got a tax deduction letter for.
They donated it someplace else.
Right,
Now
they
that,
donate.
that organization's name and contact information is on our resource list.
Also on our resource list.
You know who I've been hearing a lot of ads from? Max Sold.
Yep.
And MJ is one of our favorite organizers, and she uses them a lot. They'll come in and they'll just essentially clean it out, resell it, auction it off, tell you what can be donated. And I don't have any more details than that, but they're also on the list. I found a great place in Acton that takes household goods.
Mhm.
In fact, I think it's householdgoods.com.
That's the name of it. And then they help people coming out of homelessness or other challenges get started in a new home. So it
And
feels great to send it there, right?
And there are places in Boston, there are a number of places that do this type of thing. And I took a big set of dishes, I got a receipt, and just cleaned out my cupboards as well.
But the problem, we've talked about the solution.
Yeah.
What we're finding is that it's very, very hard to deal with the emotional attachment to some stuff.
Do you know that I still have in my underwear drawer plaster casts of my kids' hands
Yeah,
in plaster when they were in kindergarten?
exactly.
They're 51 and 53 now.
Yeah, your grandgals will love it.
Yeah.
No, it's true though. It's part of the challenge. And I had a few epiphanies during this whole experience. One is that my things were not my memories. And I know that seems like such a simple thing to say, but you know, I agonized over one piece of furniture. It was my mother's antique hutch. I was with her on a trip to New York when we stumbled across it in Soho in an antique store. She had it shipped back to Chicago. I had it shipped out here to Boston when I married Richard. And she's been gone a long, long time. And I felt like she was somehow living in that wood. I don't know how to describe it to you. I didn't even like it. Okay, except that it was hers and she loved it.
Mhm.
And I actually had, please don't think I'm crazy, a conversation with her one night, late at night, posthumously. I said, Ma, if I give this away, are you going to be upset? And I could almost hear her answer, because anytime she thought I was off base, she would tell me I was being flaky. And I could hear her say, you're being flaky again. It's just a chest. Give it away.
Mhm.
So there are these crazy emotional attachments that we make, thinking that they're precious because they're our memories. I still have memories of that chest and of being with her when she bought it. Those didn't go away.
Mhm.
It's you have to have your own light bulb moment that you're ready to part with inanimate objects.
Mhm.
And that's hard. It was very hard.
Now, frequently, we recommend that our clients hire a professional organizer.
Right.
And there is an organization called NAPO, National Association of Professional Organizers. And, there's a difference between a person who helps you go through everything and somebody who is certified and had training as a professional organizer. And our favorite organizers, they're more than just people that tell you what to do with your stuff. They sit and listen and help you decide how you want to move forward. Many times,
Some of them are even social workers, right?
and coaches.
Right.
And it's not as easy as just going in, telling somebody you don't want that, you want to put that there, you want to put that there. That's helpful. And we've had clients in a variety of situations, everything from hoarders, and we do mean hoarders, not just people with a lot of stuff, but those who emotionally have barricaded themselves with stuff. And we've had others who know they want to do something, they're not quite sure how. They don't want to pay or don't have the resources to pay somebody to do it, but they can, for a couple of hours worth of time, develop a plan so that they can implement it and move forward. And that's worked very well.
So I think that it goes hand in hand with what holds some people back from being able to downsize. It's like, and I think it's the thing we hear almost every time. What am I going to do with all this stuff?
Well, it's kind of hard because I know that my mother valued her Hummels.
Mhm.
And she had dozens of them. And because she valued them, they were very special to me as well.
Mhm.
And nobody wants Hummels.
Nope. I've got Yadros, I've got Royal Copenhagens. I kept the ones I loved and I donated the ones that I could part with. So I made a rule for myself and it helped me, and maybe it will help some of the folks listening to us tonight. My rule was, if you cherish it, take it with you. If you don't, let it go. And part two is, if you cherished it enough to take it with you, then enjoy it and use it. Don't put it in a cupboard. So when I have my occasional glass of Pinot Noir, I found out it tastes much better in my crystal goblets than it did in a cheap wine glass. And I'm using them. We had a party for our clients and we pulled it all out, didn't we?
That was a tea party, if you remember. Yeah. It's your place. And all those gorgeous little teacups.
Well, my mom had collected them on every country she visited. She brought home a teacup. That was her thing.
Yeah.
So, and I love them. And I use them.
And you found a place for them.
Yes.
I know I have plans to do a lot of scanning and digitizing.
With all the pictures that are sitting in boxes in the basement, right?
Yeah. And family documents.
Right.
When our parents and grandparents pass, we got all their documents. I've got my grandparents' naturalization papers from Ellis.
I have the letters in code that my father sent to my grandmother from the Philippines during World War II. And they had their own special language, so she always knew where he was, even though things were redacted. Yeah. And you just can't throw those things away.
But you can't scan them these days and put them in the cloud.
So it just helped me to sort of realize, and it seems so simple now, but my memories are my memories no matter where I live.
And the stuff is stuff.
Stuff is stuff.
Yeah. But let's talk about selling a house and moving into another accommodation. Now, people have a number of choices. I've had some friends sold their homes. They just didn't want to bother with owning property.
Mhm.
And they have found nice rental accommodations, some of them in just general lovely apartment complexes, others looking for senior communities. There are so many choices out there, depending on what they want.
Because
Others,
that's the other question we get all the time, right? Well, where
where
am I going to go?
Yeah. And rentals, one option. Another is a continuous care residential community where you can go into an independent living unit. My mother-in-law was in about 1,000 square feet, one bedroom unit. She could have her dogs with her, and yet she had all of the amenities of being able to have meals served to her, group activities. They had transportation to shopping and to events. She gave up her car. She didn't need it. And had she lived just a little bit longer, they were ready to push her into assisted living, and she was 95 years old. So she lived in independent living until she passed at age 95. For her, it was a perfect solution. And sometimes you purchase a life estate, sometimes you just pay rent. So they're all different accommodations there.
Annette, there are people who help you sort through the various options you have for facilities like this. And I believe we have someone on our resource list.
I don't know if she's on the resource list, but we have her.
But we have, or somebody could reach out to us because she does it sort of not full-time.
Professionally, but yeah.
Right.
But also, I've been impressed with the staff at the senior centers. They
Yes.
have a lot of resources, again, that they're dealing with this population, and it behooves them to know what's going on out there.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, some of our clients want to buy another place. They want to take their equity and put it someplace where it will continue to grow, because there are very few tried and true investments like real estate. And they come to us and say, I'm looking for single floor living. And frankly, if anything ever happened to my dear husband and I was on my own, I would go into a condo so I wouldn't have to shovel, I wouldn't have to mow. I have a nice living place, something like that. Others want a standalone home, and they ask us for a ranch home or enough living on one floor. Now, you're in a multi-level unit.
But I have a first floor master, a first floor bath. And as we age here, we can just live on that level. The upstairs right now, since the pandemic, has become the second bedroom's upstairs, and there's a sitting room there. So when kids and grandkids come to visit, they have their own quarters, and we have our privacy. And I still am in a condo, so I don't have to shovel or mow. And the other thing that I felt, and when Richard had his surgery last year, it worked for us, is that I was able to bring nursing care in and have nursing care.
Stay overnight.
Have the nurse, this wonderful, lovely woman, had her own quarters and privacy with a kid's monitor in case we needed her. So
it worked out real well for you.
It worked out very, very well. And my hope is now that I never move again.
Yeah.
So,
well, it's interesting because people ask us about ranch houses. There are so few of them
right
here, but a Cape will do the same thing. Most Capes have a first bedroom. So, but the other thing that I hear is, oh, this housing market's crazy. How am I going to get into a place? How can I sell my home and move into another one and not either have to carry two mortgages or be homeless in between?
We've never had a homeless client, have we?
Not yet. I don't intend to have one either.
Nor I. There are solutions depending on your individual needs. The client we're working with now will likely need a lease back. In other words, we're going to sell her home one day, but she's going to live there another 4 to 6 weeks and pay the new owner rent. so that she has the money available to her freed up and she can use it to get into her next place. There are solutions, and the best advice I think Annette and I could ever give you is that you need to work with an experienced, highly capable, very smart agent. Listen, we would always volunteer, but it isn't about that. It's really about getting the right professionals to give you the very best service and advice.
You can't pay enough money to get a really great mortgage professional. And we've had clients get mortgages based not on their income, but on their portfolios.
Exactly.
And so it's not just fill out an application, you get a mortgage. There are always new products coming available that will bridge one. Did you raise your hand, Lynn?
No. Did I hit it? I was looking. There we go. I was looking to see if there were questions in the chat box, and I must have hit it.
Okay.
That's very funny. No, I didn't raise my hand, but there was a question here in the chat box, and it was along these lines. It's how do I physically arrange it if I have to sell my house first and I don't want to move twice? And we hear that a lot. And there are a lot of different solutions to that, depending on your individual needs. And you want to work with somebody who will spend the time needed to really understand your goals, to dig deep and give you some options to see what works for you. But there are leasebacks. There's the option of using a mortgage. If your home is currently totally paid for, you could put a mortgage on your new place and get into your new place and then pay it off when we sell your current home. There, depending on your individual needs, there are solutions. And sometimes I think when a problem feels too big, we start thinking in spirals and it paralyzes us.
But here's the other truth. We're not the mortgage people.
Right.
We know great mortgage people. We can refer you to a couple who can discuss everything with you.
Mm-hmm.
I've had with the one property down in Randolph, she was supposed to move in one day, and for stupid reasons, the seller wanted to wait a week to close. And he said, well, she's got to get her stuff out. So they gave her not a lease back, a use and
occupancy, right.
So she had access to the house. I mean, they weren't living there, but she had access to it. She didn't own it. It's kind of like a tenant without all the tenant rights. And it worked. It's a matter of bringing the challenge to the front and then finding a solution for it, because most often these have been seen before.
I would agree. So we've talked about retrofitting your physical home, your financial life, so that you can stay in your home if you choose to. And we've talked about how to make a move if you wish to, including hopefully taking a look at all that stuff that nobody wants.
But you know what we haven't mentioned? I kind of alluded to it in the beginning. This is a major life decision.
Yes.
You just don't go off, say, I'm going to do this and just do it. We suggest you speak to an accountant, speak to an attorney, speak to a financial planner, an investment counselor, somebody who can look at your total situation. Do you have a 401k? Do you have a stock portfolio? How much is your house really worth? Where do you see yourself in 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? How can we get you there? Will you have to pay capital gains on your house now? What does that mean? And we can give general guidelines, but really your accountant is the one who can tell you that. And so we strongly suggest, should I get a trust? Should I put my house in a trust? What kind of trust? What does this mean? We kind of have halfway answers. In other words, we know what we've done in our lives that may not be appropriate for somebody else. So speak to
Exactly.
the experts. It's really important.
And if you don't have those resources, we can probably help point you towards a few good people.
Yeah, downsizersstay.com. And there is a button there. You can download our resource directory. And as always, any questions, just pick up the phone and call us. That's what we're here for.
There you go.
Well, listen, I don't see any more questions. Lynn, I want to thank the audience so much for being with us tonight. Really appreciate having you here.